Hey, how you doing? My name is Ryan, and today I'm ranking every LEGO Black Widow minifigure ever made. Which versions of Natasha Romanoff pack the most punch, and which are kind of duds. If my previous tier list videos are any indication, get ready for some quasi-questionable rankings. Now, as always, we'll start in release order. So up first is the original Black Widow minifigure from 2012's Avengers Wave. Now, I always feel a little bit bad ranking the earlier figures lower on the tier list, but the neckline here is way too dark to match the head. The lines on the torso are really thick and really make that design feel rather flat. I do like the belt swooshing from the torso through the hips and onto the legs, but I'm not sure why there's so much blue on this figure. Maybe LEGO was trying to add some color contrast without going monochromatic, so they decided to add blue to give some pops of color to a majority black and gray figure. The face has some snark to it, even if the cheek lines do age Natasha, despite this being the youngest Scarlett Johansson would have been. Again, I do feel bad putting the earlier figures lower on the tier list, but think of it more so as a badge of honor that LEGO was able to improve their design so much over the past decade. Still, I'm putting this figure into the C tier, but like B tier on a curve. I don't really do curves for my lists, but just so you know, B tier on a curve, C tier in reality. How about the next Black Widow from Age of Ultron in 2015? It's pretty impressive how different the art style is on this figure. The face is much less intense, but also exclusive. The color contrast on the torso is more reasonable. The leg printing is subtle, but flows really well from the torso. They're all minor tweaks, but they add up to a significantly better Black Widow minifigure. The added pops of red on the belt and better color match on the neckline are a great improvement too. The only real setback here is the hair, which is close to how actress Scarlett Johansson wears it in the film, but LEGO will use this hairstyle a lot for Black Widow minifigures, even if the character changes up her hair almost every film. That's more a knock on future figures, so I'll put this Age of Ultron variant into the A tier. But how about the Infinity War Black Widow from 2018? I really only have one complaint for this figure, and that's the face. It's the same one used on Jyn Erso, Mera, Mighty Thor, Padme, and Vicky Vale. Not only that, but this becomes the only face we ever see for Black Widow for the rest of the figures. But thankfully, the rest of this figure is pretty great. The torso vest print in sand green looks incredibly detailed, but not overwhelmingly so. The leg printing is nice, and the hair in blonde matches the incognito look of Natasha in Infinity War. And funnily enough, while this figure is exclusive to just one set, that one set in question was the cheapest in the Infinity War wave, so you can get this figure of Black Widow for pretty cheap these days. I think this figure goes into the A tier. Next on the list is the time travel Black Widow from Avengers Endgame in 2019. And if you've watched any of my other Avengers tier list videos, you kind of know where this is going. The torso and leg designs are pretty fantastic and match the look of the time heist suits, but this is another figure that's identical to several others, albeit a different hair and head. Look, it's great for a photo op to have all these figures side by side, but was this really the best use of your characters in your first ever wave of Endgame sets? Probably not. Add to that the new generic female face, and yeah, this figure is kind of disappointing relative to other Black Widows. I think it belongs into the C tier. But how about the Black Widow white suit from 2020? Now this is how you do a white suit Black Widow. The detail lines and shadows are picturesque, having both dark gray and light gray lines side by side. The belt and top strap add some needed color contrast, and the leg design with the straps flow really well from the torso print. I do like the longer hair on Black Widow, even if the face is already wearing down on me more than it should. Considering this figure was going to be a Comic-Con exclusive, I think the design and print are really well handled and capture the white snowsuit look from the Black Widow film. But the lack of arm printing is a touch of a letdown, again, especially for what was going to be a Comic-Con exclusive figure. So I'm putting this Black Widow figure comfortably into the A tier. The next figure to rank is the Black Widow hero suit, again from 2020. The retail Black Widow movie suit I don't think is as successful as the white one. The gray lines, dark gray straps, and belt kind of get lost in the darker design. LEGO only added a few white lines in the hopes of providing enough contrast, but I'm not sure it's enough. Every line and detail on the white suit was crystal clear, whereas here, the darker torso swallows most of the detail work and makes it look mushy and unfocused. The gold, red, and light nougat don't pop as much either, because on mass-produced figures, it's much harder to print lighter colors on top of a darker Lego piece. The leg design is also simpler, losing the asymmetrical belts in favor of minimal line details. Really, almost every single issue with this figure would have been fixed if you changed the color of the torso to, say, white. The artistry here isn't bad, but the printer quality and foresight about the black torso don't do this figure any favors, so I'll put this Black Widow into the C tier. Now for this list, I think we have to also rank Yelena Belova's figure from 2020. Seeing as Yelena's kind of the new Black Widow, I'm pretty sure the character also goes by the moniker White Widow, I think it counts to have her on the list. Plus, if I didn't include Yelena, I'd get several comments saying, why didn't you include Yelena? So I'll just cover my bases. I do appreciate LEGO remaking the olive green vest that Yelena gives to Natasha before the events of Infinity War. The zippers and belts are really crisp on the print, and I like how both widows wear the vest differently. Natasha's the poser with the lower zip, and Yelena's more practical with the vest zipped up all the way up. Just kind of a funny observation. Not really a quality of each figure, but just an observation of artistry. The white legs are the same as the quote Comic-Con Black Widow, and they look nice here. The face is a rather ubiquitous print used on Hermione, Pepper Potts, and Maisie Lockwood from Jurassic World. But major props to LEGO for giving Yelena the accurate light hair but darker eyebrows, the same as actress Florence Pugh. Still, this figure is really only a new torso. Then again, there's not really any major design flaws on the torso, so I think I'll put Yelena into the B tier. But between you and me, A tier on that curve we talked about earlier, just so we're all clear. Okay, how about the video game Black Widow minifigure from 2020? So Black Widow is the kind of character where the film costume and the comic costume are pretty much the same. So while it's nice to have a non-MCU Black Widow minifigure, it's not really all that different, except this one makes some really smart choices. The torso has large swaths of dark gray instead of many gray lines on black. It makes the gray stand out more and gives the torso detail without overwhelming the eye. While it looks segmented, it feels like armor plating and kind of works for me. Plus, this is our first Black Widow with arm printing. The patterning is clean and makes this figure feel complete. The leg printing, face, and hair are identical to the previous figure, but this video game outing is a solid upgrade from the previous MCU suits. So I think this figure goes into the A tier. But now we enter the modern era of Avengers minifigures with the Quinjet remake in 2023. And after a slew of very complex suits, this 2012 Avengers remake epitomizes the less is more mentality with Black Widow minifigures. Every line on the simpler torso is thoughtfully added and weighted. All the shapes and colors are well handled, especially that pop of red on the belt. The more basic design and emphasis on negative space allows for the blank legs to not be so distracting. But the real star here is the arm printing, with a bold shield logo on each shoulder and some added detail lines near the hands. The thoughtful design on the torso and arm printing make for a very robust, if not a little bit top-heavy, Black Widow minifigure. And frankly, this design is more accurate to the original film than the 2012 version. Despite the reused face and hair, I think this figure just barely makes it into the A tier. Next up on the list is the Age of Ultron remake from 2023. This figure combines the best elements of the video game suit and the 2023 remake figure we just talked about. The use of the large dark gray swatch in the middle of the torso is genius, allowing for a multi-toned torso without sacrificing negative space. The white and gray line work is deftly handled, almost flexing with how good modern LEGO printers are. The blue accent lines flow incredibly well from the torso to the hips and legs, and the leg printing is also very well handled, and LEGO even included some toe printing here. Put side by side the 2015 Age of Ultron figure, it's really impressive to see how far designers and printers have come with utilizing and optimizing every millimeter of space on these tiny figures. Over 10 years of Black Widow minifigures, and we finally have our first S tier. But what about the holiday advent calendar figure from 2023? I don't think anyone was expecting a holiday figure to be top of the line. And I'll give credit to the designers. The widow symbol and tree inside is cute, and the use of pixelation to achieve a knitted look is very well done. But that's really about it. Advent calendar figures only allow for small spurts of creativity, as the designers have to stay within the budget of the advent calendar set in question. So we don't really get much new outside of torsos. This Black Widow has to go into the C tier, but it's not really the designer's fault. It's more about the nature of advent calendars to begin with. I mean, we've seen plenty of lazy holiday figures like Thor and Venom, and truth be told, really the only Marvel holiday figures that work thematically are the Guardians. So C tier for this figure, but maybe B tier on that curve we talked about earlier that, again, does not exist. Next up is the Avengers Tower minifigure from 2024. Take the positive aspects of the 2023 Quinjet figure and add some leg printing. Now, the design on the legs is thankfully not too distracting to overload the design with too many details, but the added printing does take this figure to the next level. And for being in a set that retails for $500, you'd expect next level figures. I'm not sure why LEGO didn't include this version of Black Widow in the Quinjet set from 2023, especially if the plan was to have this leg piece be ubiquitous across several characters. I mean, I know exactly why. It's so people like me buy both versions of Black Widow or feel like they have to have both versions of Black Widow, but regardless of how easily manipulated I am, this figure goes into the S tier, and honestly, I think this minifigure of Black Widow is the definitive version of the character in LEGO form. And finally, how about the Civil War variant from 2025? This figure appeared in both the Civil War airport battle and the LEGO Marvel logo set. And I can see why some people love and some people hate this figure. The hairpiece is changed to the longer style to better match Natasha's look in Civil War. That's good. The legs have solid, accurate printing. That's good. The torso is the same design as before, but without the arm printing. That's bad. But the lack of SHIELD logo on the arms is accurate to the MCU's portrayal of Black Widow, because at the time, SHIELD didn't exist, and her costume did not have the SHIELD logo on it. So from an MCU standpoint, this figure should be A tier. From a LEGO standpoint, this figure should be B tier, as it's mostly a hodgepodge of pre-existing or downgraded parts. I'm going to give the designers the benefit of the doubt and say that they chose to not have arm printing as a way to better represent the character at that point in the MCU, rather than have just random exclusivity. So for that reason, this figure goes into the A tier. And that's my ranking of all of the LEGO Black Widow minifigures, but I'd love to know what you guys think. What's your favorite LEGO Black Widow, and which one encapsulates all the best characteristics of Natasha Romanoff? Let me know in the comments down below, and as always, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.